How are you doing this afternoon anyway? I guess it's technically afternoon where you are, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting into evening. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
see, it's just
4.
often enough 'cause it's a 9 p.m. right here, so quite late.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be even later because I've got a panel at 1 a.m. of all times. All the
Oh my.
panels, all the Twitch politics panels always start at 8 p.m. EST. So
Oh, gee.
I have to stay up super
Wow.
late for them, being a Brit and everything. But yeah, anything. Do you want to tell everyone in chat who you are, what you do, your political positions? I don't know, general information.
Yeah, Alex, I'm a member of DSA. I'm a socialist. I'm pretty involved in politics locally in Burlington, Vermont, and I
Hey,
post a lot of politics. Yeah.
from
So,
from from Daddy's hometown.
yep. I see him very often, actually.
Excellent. I'm jealous. I didn't get that much contact with Jeremy Corbyn myself, which is like I guess the analog to that. So that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I run into him when I'm out running and at the grocery store and stuff, and it's very strange every time.
Yeah, it must be yeah quite jarring. Considering how large he is on a political scale, especially obviously, and also he's been in the news quite a lot today for voting against the military spending bill.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Thank God. I mean,
I mean, someone had to. I guess everyone. I don't.
yeah.
I've not seen what the other votes are going to look like, so I'm not sure how much of a dent that's going to make. But at least it's a principal position on the fact that the military budget's incredibly bloated, considering how much got taken out of the better bill originally. So,
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, luckily in Vermont, we're pretty anti-war. So even the kind of like non-political people are pretty anti-war. So that's one good thing. But he won't get flack for it here, but he'll probably get flack for it on the media, like in the mainstream media for sure. So,
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Hasn't the other senator just quit?
oh, Leahy, yep, he just retired. So we're trying to figure out if Welch is going to get Bernie's endorsement because it's over if that happens. So.
Yeah, true, true. Is there anyone like is that the kind of a DSA affiliated person or?
No, he's in the House right now. He's our representative at large. We only have one in the whole state, and
Oh, really?
he wants to run for Senate. He's a really good friend of Bernie, but he's not nearly as progressive as I don't like his positions on Israel and some other things. There's a really progressive endorsed by Bernie possible candidate who's a state rep right now, and she will run if Bernie doesn't endorse Welch. So we'll
Okay, well,
see.
fingers crossed then. The
Yeah.
lesser the better. Because I just find like obviously what we'll probably get into quite a lot the way in which we just kind of see there's been kind of this dearth of engagement with I guess local electoral politics amongst on the online left at the moment, especially considering what we're going to talk about moving forward. Because so many things are, contingent on having the power at a local level first to be able to get to the right place, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. I've kind of like I don't want to say given up on like congressional politics, but I'm just trying to focus locally so much more and encourage other people to do that because you can see the results of your efforts a lot more quickly and you can make a lot of big change locally. We replaced several city council members with pretty left leaning members, and we defunded the police to a degree. We've what else? We're opening dispensaries in our city next year. We've passed some rent landlord like laws to help tenants so that they have to have like a really good reason to evict you. They can't just like jack up the rent and evict people. I mean, like all these things, like the charter that we just passed was super progressive, and it's because we took the time to replace all the people that needed to be replaced on the city council. So it really does make a difference to start investing locally and seeing those changes.
excellent, excellent. I was going to say, so the reason why I was going to chat, because I've seen on Twitter.com, the Bird app, you'd been following the kind of fallout that happened with the Fred Hampton leftists. What was it? What they call it? They call it a General Strike Summit. Was that the name of the thing, right?
Yep.
And how everything it all just kind of turned into like a social media kind of war rather than being any kind of movement for actually looking at the way in which we can, use progressive and leftist courses moving forward to, how the way in which we can use advance these courses moving forward. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. And it became something like a shit flinging fest in the end, which seems a little counterproductive. Which again, which we felt, I think most sides engaged in the shit flinging by the end of it. What? So, do you want to take through what you'd kind of seen when you'd been covering it and that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah, yeah. So this is like I think the third iteration of like something that's like this from that sort of faction of the left. So they had the M4A march in July, I mean, and then they had like the anti-war thing, and now it's this. But every time it's like the same podcasters, it's the same kind of like post-left. I don't, I mean, there's several like less friendly names for them, I guess, but I think post-left is fine. But kind of like the like it's like their entire politics is kind of like free Assange, but like vaccine mandates are bad and vaccines are bad, and and we'll work with the Boogaloo boys, but not liberals. And it's this weird, like, I don't even want to call it like Nosbol, because it's like not even, it's not even like that socialist. It's just like picking its couple of like the top policies that like we're pushing for on the left in America, which is way to the right of everybody else, like Medicare for all, and like finding these like weirdos that like want that stuff but also like want to hang out with racists and
it's very strange, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it's like super weird. It's like everything about their politics engaging in culture wars, like everything about their politics seems to be very right wing until like it's like a couple of progressive policies, and then okay, yeah, I support Medicare for all, but also I want to march with the Boogaloo boys, and also like vaccines are bad, and also let's go Brandon, and like I don't know how that's like a leftist tendency to like want to hang out with kind of like fashy people. So it seems like they're doing this every 3 months, and it's always like the Rofkin people, like Fiorella and Nico House, and those people, and Misty, I forget her last name, and then Fred Hampton leftist, which was the whole big thing this time. So I think for like, since they branded themselves whenever the Judas and the Black Messiah movie came out, I wondered about like, can they use that name? Like, as far as like the stuff they're representing, I don't know that Fred Hampton would agree with working with Boogaloo boys and things like that, and misrepresenting his legacy like he worked with white supremacists, which he clearly did not. And it's very like, if you read about him, you know that. But I know Jimmy Dore kind of misled people and told people that he did work with white supremacists.
I mean, in what point in history has Jimmy Dore even approached to looking at any kind of historical or theoretical basis for the position he espouses? So.
Oh, exactly. I mean, and the irony being that his dad was a Chicago PD officer at the time that Fred Hampton was killed. So, like of all the people he could be related to. Yeah. So this video came out, and Fred Hampton. I saw somebody like linked to it, and it was Fred Hampton Jr. 5 or 6 days ago saying that he wasn't cool with them using his name, or his dad's name, and it does interfere with your ability to raise funds off of your father's name or whatever if somebody else is using it. Like that's why copyright law exists and everything. Yeah. So he put a video about it, and then it went semi-viral. I posted it, and the clip, and it went semi-viral, and the reaction, of course, from like that faction of the left was even more unhinged. It was like, oh well, and now he's a shit lib, and like I'm like, oh my god, no way that these people are like calling Fred Hampton Jr. a shit lib. And then Nick Socialist MMA, that one of the main guys was like retweeting like, oh, so I have to get FDR's permission to be an FDR Democrat, and like like all this stuff after they had said for months that they had permission to use the name, and all of a sudden now they're admitting they don't, but they're like, well, I shouldn't have to get permission to use the name. And so it's been like this whole drama. But I think the big, like, I guess my side's issue is if you want to do if you want to promote striking, if you want to promote labor and the stuff that's happening around labor, great. But why is it always like this branding convention? Why is it always these like red brown people that are like not really representative of the less values that like are hosting things that they're not even qualified to host for? I don't want Nick teaching me about labor striking. Like, I wouldn't teach people about that because it's not a thing I've done. I would like get somebody smarter than me and have them on. And it feels like it's just like that same orbit of people that keeps coming out with this like branding exercise every couple months that everybody else is supposed to do what? Because it doesn't do anything.
Like, I find it very frustrating because I think there are a lot of people who are involved in that kind of side of like left politics online, who I genuinely have a lot of respect for, and I think they have really good point of views, especially a lot of kind of more kind of the anarchist side of things, who I genuinely have a lot of respect for their at least their political positions. Maybe not. Maybe we have different ideas on how to do activism, how to affect change. Right? Sure, I can deal with these disagreements. But then there's so many people who get involved with that side. They don't. I don't think they quite grasp the optics of hanging out with somebody like Jimmy Dore, someone like Jackson Hinkle or whatever, because it really tarnishes the way in which we should be, be able to build a broader left coalition. It seems like, to me, it feels like factionalism for clout, if you get what I mean. Because this is what social media algorithms drive conflict, both external and internal conflicts, because it drives engagement. Everyone loves a good, dunk fest in the Twitter replies, and that's what Twitter want. That's what's going to drive, and I find it incredibly toxic when we could use these large platforms that people do have, because these people have large platforms, to be advocating for, instead of using it to say, well, I mean, because I get that, sure, if Hassan is in your replies chatting shit about you on your stream, you're gonna then talk about Hassan in your stream, but it doesn't speak to broader activism if you then spend the rest of your stream talking about Hassan or Vorsh or whatever, when there could be far more pragmatic things that we could be spending this time talking about. And maybe it's down to us that we shouldn't be, if they're making a proper effort to engage with these things critically, then we can at least be like critical in a positive kind of way, constructive criticism, rather than just Twitter dunks. But again, it's happening from both sides now because that's what the algorithm demands. It just demands dunking. And I find it difficult because I don't want to be seen to be allied with people like Jimmy Dore and Jackson Hinkle, etc., etc. When there are people on that podcast, like, I mean, for all his faults, I've seen him post some dubious things on Twitter. Shahid Buttar, who was on the actual thing himself, I agree with a lot of positions that he espouses, and he makes a lot of good criticisms of party politics in the US. But it's difficult to then be able to put him forward as a candidate to other people when you say, well, what was he doing hanging out with Jimmy Dore, right? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. No, he was sane on that. He was like, everything he said on the live stream was great. And I was like, where's this guy like on Twitter? He's so weird and like makes every single post about him like being everybody's replies like, well, Nancy Pelosi, which is really weird. But actually he was making a lot of sense on there. It was just disheartening to see that the majority of that stream with like 3 days was spent talking about anti-vaccine stuff, Twitter wars, like just garbage that has nothing to do with it. Kyle Rittenhouse is a false flag. Like, what is this? This is supposed to be about labor striking, and it's what concerns me is there are like, grifter gets thrown around a lot, so I don't really love that word, but there's people that are actual like grifters, right, in that group, and then there's people that are well-meaning and get sucked into the left that way and like don't ever like learn any proper analysis or anything, and they're telling people to do a general strike. Like, there's no strike funds, there's no way for them to like get paid for that, there's no ensuring that they're not going to lose their job. Like, there's so many things that go into a general strike. It's incredible. We've never had one. Like, even when we had the wildcat strikes, we didn't have a general strike, and I don't, the kind of like hubris to think you can just we're hosting a summit in 2 months. We're going to learn everything there is to learn about labor by then, and then we'll do a general strike. It's like there's no humility of like I have to learn things. And for me, like becoming a leftist and moving every time like I read, I'm humbled by like the amount that I don't understand and about
Yeah.
systems and
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
like that. And there's none of that. Just no curiosity, no like intellectual curiosity about like maybe I don't have the right approach. Maybe I should not put like the most divisive people in the world as the main headliners of an event. I mean, they completely trashed Nina Turner because she didn't come to some event like 2 hours away during the Medicare for All thing while she was running a campaign.
Literally,
So
she was running for Congress, and they're like, "Well, why aren't you at our march?" I'm like, "So I'm busy trying to get into the House of House of Representatives here. I'm sorry, like maybe
yeah,
next time."
yeah, and the person that was speaking at that one was Misty, who regularly platforms fascists and Nazis, like literal actual Nazis, that actual like organizations have called Nazis, like Kevork and Kevork Almacian, who's like with the German. Well, I forget what the party's called, but it's like it's their
AFD.
yeah, AFD. Yeah. I mean, like, and the problem is, like, yeah, sure, talk to whoever you want, but it's when you don't push back, right? When you just let them say their propaganda and their bullshit, and you never push back, which is what Jimmy does with Tucker Carlson, and it's just that's not the introduction I want somebody to have to leftists. If that's what the regular normie libs got of Bernie Bros, in 2020, it's hard to not understand why they would hate Bernie Bros. Like the people that are calling like me and like all the other leftist shit libs because they're a member of DSA or because like they still believe that some electoralism has value or whatever. Like, if they're calling like me a shit lib, like imagine how they're treating somebody that's like just a progressive leaning lib on Twitter.
But just
That
like,
just
well,
likes
like
like.
the crazy thing is that they keep calling other people shit libs. When was the last time like Jimmy Dore ever talked about like genuine like Marxist analysis? He talks about so no actual socialism or unions or stuff like that. He very rarely talks about it. It's always just this member of the squad said this thing, and I'm like, surely there's something more constructive that we could be doing with our time, because like I don't think Jimmy Dore is a grifter. I don't. I think he's genuine in what he believes. I just think that he's guided in by populist rhetoric without critically analyzing it first. If that makes sense to you, um, but that's the problem. Is that there's no in the US union the union movement is dead at this point. I mean, not dead as in that nobody supports it, but its power has basically been neutered to the point of insanity. Like there's like you can't have a general strike because because Taft-Hartley is in place. Until that gets
Yeah.
repealed, the union movement is just completely toothless. And so it's like, well, okay, well, how are we going to get that repealed? You have to win votes. You have to start winning elections, and at least try and get that that papered over on a state level before you even have a look at it on the federal level as well. Like
Yeah.
we need that.
Yeah,
So
I mean that
this
was the thing. Like DSA went all in on the PRO Act this year, trying to get people to sign, and I think we got like 3 senators that weren't signed. I think there's only like one left, but we have the whole like other bullshit that's going on in Congress with the filibuster and stuff. But yeah, I mean that's what you need. You need those big forward steps. The PRO Act would be a massive forward step. There'd be massive penalties for people trying to union bust, and it's legal to union bust basically. In 27 states, it's absolutely legal to union bust, and this is the first time in my life I've ever lived in a state that it wasn't legal to union bust, and so I've
finally.
never been a member of the union. And it's absolutely like crushing the soul of the left, like the ability of the left to do things. But instead, we're in these circular arguments about whether AOC is this or that, and it's like I'm not like the biggest like electoral politics fan, but I see the utility in having people speaking to left values on a national stage, whether they can accomplish things or not. Just having that in the public consciousness is something. And also, there's a weird like you have to be perfect and I have to agree with every vote or you're a sellout shitlib, and that's not how anything works.
Well,
You have to get like
yeah, well, it's a very kind of liberal mind frame to want to sort someone into the good box or the bad box. Like talking about
Yeah.
individual politicians about, well, are they the good guy or the bad guy? That's a very liberal mindset, rather than saying, okay,
Mhm.
sure, maybe some of AOC's viewpoints have been subsumed by the Democratic Party or by the whims of capital or whatever. But does that mean that her presence in the House would be made, what would be like, is better or worse than if she wasn't there? Like, it's all marginal utility at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd rather have 400 really imperfect, really progressive people than what we have now, of course. Like or like 12 perfect progressives that vote the way I want every single time. Of course they're not all going to vote the way you want. I mean, people understand this with Bernie Sanders, and that's what I hate to throw out the misogyny thing here, but it's so weird that people get it with like Bernie has bad votes. Bernie's terrible with like police stuff. Bernie's bad about like I don't know. There's certain things that he's just not good with, and definitely the police is one of them, right? Like he thinks of them as workers. But we understand that he's an ally. Like almost everybody understands that. Whereas like for some reason when it's AOC, it's like she's a snake sellout, shit lib, blah blah blah, Nancy Pelosi, Mama Bear, and it's like, okay, then stop thinking about her. Why do I have to think about every single thing she did then for the rest of her life?
And that's why I find
Like,
it difficult to like move past the idea they're just kind of doing it for clout at the end of the day. Because, I mean, you look at something like, I hate to keep talking about him because surely we're all bored of him at this point, but you look at someone like, I don't know, Jimmy Dore, look at his YouTube feed when it's just bashing, left of centre politicians within the Democratic Party. And then you look at the comments section, like, he really, remember the one he did the video where talking about Vince Vaughn and critical race theory or whatever, like, and him not being critical of critical race theory, and his entire comments were like, "Whoa, dude, we didn't expect you to be like this. This one should have stayed in the drafts." And I'm just like, well, if this is the kind of audience that you're cultivating, like,
mhm.
clearly the messaging from his content isn't going to the right place or having the right message carried with it. If this is the kind of audience he's attracting, like, I don't buy this idea that people aren't responsible for the audiences and the communities that they cultivate.
Oh no, that's definitely true. I mean, I don't know what happened with Bernie, and maybe that's just because the extremely online people were really loud. Because I think the majority of his supporters are great. That's always been my experience, and but certainly outside of Twitter. But it just does seem like there was that vacuum left when he kind of dropped out of the race, and nature abhors the void, and so the people that wanted to suck up all the oxygen jumped in and were like, okay, now I'm the vanguard. So it's like people really like absolutely worship Jimmy Dore, and it's a very bizarre thing that I don't see that with a lot of people. There's certain like personalities that you're just going to get absolutely swarmed if you say a thing about that person. And he's been moving further and further to the right. And then now you can see it in his comments, and you could absolutely see where like they'll call you a shit lib, and you'll check their account, and they're like retweeting like Jack Posobiec or whatever, and like neo Nazis, and you're like, okay, well that makes sense. That's who he's cultivating.
Yeah, it's
I mean, and
populism
you
for
get the
populism's
audience he
sake.
deserves. So he kind of deserves to deal with these people. I can't even imagine, like, even for any amount of money, dealing with those people on purpose every single day.
I know, right? It beggars belief, doesn't it? And then because you also have the people who who also got involved, with the summit, were people like the grey zone types, the anti-Americanism as an ideology types. There's a good bad empanada video about him, where it's everything is just within this. It's just again populism for populism's sake, with this kind of like anti-American state kind of hue to it, where everything that is critical of the United States is then accepted uncritically as well, which I find incredibly baffling to just be so I guess be caught in the trash can of ideology. Um, but it's difficult to, again, my main issue is that I don't really care whether people are grifters. I don't really care whether people are doing things just for online clout. I really care about how this affects the wider movement, how this affects our ability to engage in genuine activism. And I just think that the vast majority of these people are doing harm to the overall movement, and that's why I find it so disheartening. Um, and
Yeah,
but and
that's
yeah,
exactly my problem too. Like, I just feel like And this was even my criticism of like Ryan Knight, whatever, I don't know what his actual deal is, but the problem with whatever their theory of change is, which as much as I've been able to suss out is some version of like abandon the Democrats, run in a new party that doesn't yet exist, or run as an independent, which you'll definitely lose. I mean, unless you're in Vermont, because we're weirdos and we do elect independents here all the time. But like any other state, that's not going to work. I don't know. Like that's it. That's the whole thing. It's still electoral politics. It's just like not the Democratic Party. So I don't even know what that is as an ideology. Like, where are you leading people? Tell people what they're supposed to do. If you're saying electoral politics is a dead end, and I think that's possible because I don't know if we have enough time to elect all the people we need to elect to get anywhere, but then tell people how to set up a mutual aid network. Tell people how to like form a tenants union. There's things that you can actually do that are non-electoral without like hyper focusing on these particular personalities or that almost agree with you 100%. It's so weird. And then I feel like the rest of us are just caught in this cycle of like having to debunk shit instead of like actually moving the dialogue forward and talking about important things. I feel like we're always chasing our own tail because there's like the stuff that they manage to get trending and like moving is this divisive bullshit that we constantly have to jump in and be like, no, that's actually not right. Oh no, like that's not what leftists are like, don't worry. And it's like this never ending cycle of just like weird thing that they say, bullshit thing, and then like we have to or do and like we have to come and like be like, no, 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 and then of course we're dunking on them because we're sick of doing this shit. Like it's just this forever. It's been going on since like January, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and it's incredibly ironic. The idea that I guess the kind of the kind of the ultra left position is that all bourgeois politics is in general pointless, and engaging in at all is a waste of time. I mean, it's a position I have a lot of sympathy for. Yet people who also would espouse that opinion will just then talk about nothing but elected representatives all day, and I'm almost like, I don't I don't get it.
Right, I know. Like, I mean, just like if you didn't like Brussels sprouts, like would you just like Google them all day? Like why just if you don't like something and it's not for you, just like move on and do something else. I can't stand Nancy Pelosi, probably one of my least favorite people in Congress, and I don't think about her 24 hours a day. I don't like see what she had for lunch or what stock she bought today. Like I know she sucks. Like so moving on. If she's in the news for whatever reason, that's one thing, but it's just like that hyper focus on things and just like screaming into the void. I don't know what they're doing, and it's got to be for clicks because I know like bashing AOC is going to get a lot more clicks than like having a nuanced opinion about the utility of a
Yeah.
left-leaning Congress member.
We're not allowed nuance on the online discourse anymore. It's not allowed. It's been banned officially. I heard from Jack Dorsey that any nuance on Twitter is now officially banned. You will have your account completely
Oh
taken
yeah,
down.
I know. I said something about Jimmy Dore, and somebody was like, "Well, so TYT did this," and I was like, "Okay." Like that's not the only choice. It's not just like Jimmy Dore or TYT. It's like Jimmy Dore can do something wrong. We don't have to compare it to something. It's so black and white. It's so then that's like really a right winger thing. Like if you're with us or you're against us. You're with us, you're against us, and there was always these little litmus tests. Like did you join our march? Did you like I don't know. Like, did you like a post from Vosh? I don't know. Like, whatever they're mad about this week. Like,
Well, I always thought so. I remember I was looking at. So I remember a segment that was done on Crystal Ball and Rising, and how they're talking about how sure, maybe we have different ideologies, but we can agree on the problems that exist. I'm like, well, most people agree on the problems that exist. I was watching a Republican congressional advert they were doing, was saying, well, now you can't feed a family off a single income anymore because the corporations and the elites have changed the economy so that you have to work forever. And I was like, yes, we both agree this is a problem, but what are we going to do about it? And most of the time, the right is all just posturing online rather than actually having any policy proposals. But the thing is that that's what we can all agree on problems, because everyone understands problems, everyone is impacted by problems. but agreeing on the correct solutions is where you have to draw the line. And that's the problem, is that Saga and Crystal on their show, they don't offer the same solutions, and in general Saga is just kind of demented at this point, which is a shame because I think Crystal has a lot of good points that she makes in her own time, and then just gets sucked back into this vortex whenever
He's
she's on breaking
right.
points.
He's like a right winger, isn't he?
Yeah, he's super super right wing, but again he's one of those like fake populist right wingers who's like, well, the corporations are bad. Well, what are you going to do about it? Do something. Oh, that's socialism. I was like,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, that's you can't be a populist from the right in real life. Like,
true.
it's impossible. But I feel like that's a little bit of what's going on with that faction too. Is that kind of right wing populism, right? Like they're talking about the things that make you mad, but they're not giving you anything that won't lead you off a cliff. You know, what are you going to do? You're going to start your own third party? I don't. That's not a solution. Like that's not an answer to this issue. And I don't think anybody really knows how we're going to get socialism, how we're going to get there. I don't know. Like we don't know if we're going to have fascism in 2024. We have no idea what's going to happen. So, and America is unique in a lot of ways to the times that this has been done before. So our strategy might need to be different, but we're not even talking about real strategies. It's just complaining and then like posturing and then these events and then attacking everybody that doesn't like their favorite podcasters or whatever. And I don't know, it's exhausting, but it seems like, when you're out there taking the name of like somebody that needs that name to raise money to save their father's childhood home, like maybe like at that point we should like reevaluate what's going on here. that this is happening to the scale that like this guy is directly being impacted by this online bullshit. These people don't exist as media figures anywhere but on Twitter, right? Like, I mean, I don't think Nick would have anything if he didn't have his Twitter following. Like, how would he get people to a stream or whatever? And it's because, and Jimmy Dore has him on and stuff now, but it would be nice if we could, like, if those people weren't the orbit of like all of left politics online. It's very depressing.
Like, as long as as long as they were being productive and pragmatic, I wouldn't even care if they had some like random like crazy opinions, even like stuff about the vaccine mandates. But the fact that it's just become completely like consumed by these individual issues rather than like a look at genuine ways to enhance structural change. We just kind of get lost in the weeds, and again, as you rightly say, you just get lost in these endless Twitter squabbles that lead nowhere and do nothing. Like, it doesn't get us anywhere. Again, I feel like people just kind of get lost in that kind of. You get this kind of weird glee from engaging in a Twitter pylon. I know, because I'm a victim of it myself. I enjoy getting in a Twitter pylon, especially on rightoids. But like, what does that do? What does that achieve?
Yeah, I've definitely been trying to chill out on that lately, but I saw that clip and posted it, but certainly I've tried to like not do it as much because it's not good for me either, like to go back and forth with these people. I've never changed anybody's mind. Like not in a Twitter thread where I'm arguing with somebody about Jimmy Dore. Like that's not ever gonna do anything. It's a waste of everybody's energy, honestly. I don't know. I think the left needs something, like in general, like broadly. I think like there was nothing to replace like the momentum that we felt like we had gotten from Bernie. And it was Bernie, and then there was the Trump fiasco, right? So then we had like years of like whatever the fuck was going on there, every single day it was like something. And then another election. Then it was like, well, now what? Now we just have like a shitty, boring president, right? So it's just like I feel like the leadership of not that the left necessarily needs a leader, but I think maybe having something to rally behind and like for that everybody wants is something that's missing. And I think so the worst people are gonna take up the mantle if it's quiet, if something's missing, then like everybody else is just kind of beholden to like the person that decided to grab the microphone. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, I mean, as for obviously you said you're a DSA member, is there any kind of stuff that in your kind of local DSA that you're doing at the moment, any kind of projects you've got going on? What's your kind of your plans moving forward?
yeah, actually, we're just restarting the electoral committee. and I'm going to be on the executive committee for that, because I want to start an initiative to pressure our state senators and reps to push for Medicare for all in our state again. We were the first state to ever try it in 2014, and they just couldn't. Yeah, they couldn't get their shit together. So they passed it, and then like the governor and like the budgeting and it just got like scrapped after it passed. So there's a bill like currently sitting in the house, in the state house right now, and if I can do some canvassing and get people to support it, we can start pressuring all of our representatives to get it through the house again, which I think would excite people. And then like it's an issue that I think I could get more people to join us on, like in DSA. And that's I think a good in to like be like, oh, so you're interested in this is what we do. And then, have them come and join us. Like in this movement, we really, we do have our own party here, so we don't really work with the Democratic Party, but we have the Vermont Progressive Party, which is its own thing. But yeah, mostly electoral stuff is like our local electoral stuff. So this was just like my idea of like, why are we not pushing for this? We live in like the one state where we really did try it. So that's what we're working on right now, and I'm hoping it's somewhat successful. So.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, there's at least projects in the works. I mean, how popular is Medicare for all in your state?
It's pretty popular, I think. I don't know the exact polling, but it was popular enough to pass the entire thing through the House and Senate. It just, it just was. They didn't figure it out. They didn't figure out how to like make it work logistically, like the websites, and like I don't think they gave enough money to build it out properly. It's a very overwhelming and complex thing to do, and everything that deals with the government is like old crappy software and old, that kind of thing. So I know that was a big part of it. I did talk to one of our state senators about it like a couple months ago, and she was telling me about when it happened, and kind of the governor just like was like, forget it after it passed, and he was a pretty lefty governor too, I think. But we'll see. We'll see if we can do it. I think Vermonters are pretty progressive overall. We're, a solid blue state. We have like some weird pockets, but for the most part, you can't really win if you're not left of center in this state at all. So.
Oh, that's good. That's good at least, because I find that in general, it's not going to be this kind of incremental idea that people just kind of shift over to a left-leaning position over time. I feel like we need to have large issues to be able to unite people around, and we saw that, I guess, in 2016 in the overall Democratic primary with Medicare for all, which was just the big issue. It was the big defining point of inflection between Bernie and Hillary, and I think that agitating for things like Medicare for all is going to be the way we're going to move people over. Because at the end of the day, we're not just looking to preach to the choir, as much as that's what I have in my Facebook bio on this page. I think most of us are mostly looking to be able to convert people to our side, to try and bring people over around key issues. And that's where I think me and things like FHL diverge, in that things like vaccine mandates and all those kind of issues. I don't think that we're going to be a way in which we move people along to a more kind of left-leaning position. Because I think a lot of people don't disagree with the vaccine mandate on the principle of everybody getting vaccinated for the public health crisis. I just think it's this general distrust of the government, which because we've not really got it over here in the UK, where we trust the government to do a lot of things, especially with, for example, vaccines. I mean, we trust our government to run our healthcare at the very least. So.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I did used to live in England for a little bit. I lived in Essex, and
I'm so sorry.
it is like, yeah, yeah. I lived in Romford, so.
Oh dear Lord! Well, I don't know what's worse: living without public healthcare, or living in Romford.
I did move to Brentwood for a little bit, in my defense, but
fair.
It's a little bit better, but yeah, it is. I think it is a lot of that. Like I definitely think people are trained to be distrustful here, and also I think that's how the gray zone stuff like gets really big, is because people are like, I don't trust the government, right? And then so they'll believe anything you tell them, right? About who's the good guy, and because the U.S. is always the bad guy, always. And it's like, yeah, okay, 9 times out of 10 that might be right, but not when we're talking about like other pieces of shit that are world leaders around the world. Like sometimes we're not the worst one. Sometimes.
Like,
So
there was something in my chat so about obviously the big problem with in the US is obviously with such having a big private healthcare, in having control over the entire healthcare system. That's why people get distrustful of vaccine stuff, and I think I agree with that. And I think that's an issue. That's one reason why I think I have a lot of sympathy for the third party people that advocate for third party in the United States, because when you have two parties who are essentially are both governed by capital interests, right? But all of their money comes from corporate donors. It's not like in the UK where our main political party is entirely funded by the unions and memberships.
right.
It's difficult for people to see past that, because at the end of the day, it's always going to be the people versus corporate interests when you look on things on a national scale. So I get that. I just don't see a kind of pragmatic way forward to that as to actually get any change. See what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly. I feel the exact same way. I wish, like, I love having the Progressive Party here because I don't ever have to vote for Democrats, and it, like, for me, that feels good. But it's just not viable. And the system is set up in a bad way. I mean, everything about our government is broken, including the representative democracy part. Like, there's nothing representative about electing one guy to go get rich at Congress that doesn't have to answer to you. There's nothing, you're just choosing between two guys. Like, which one do you want to send to Congress to get rich? And it sucks. And of course, I wish everybody had other options that were actually viable. It's just the way it's set up, it's rigged. And it's just going to be impossible to get to that point without being more incremental, even than taking over the Democratic Party, which is extremely incremental. So it's like, I feel like, if we somehow luck out and don't have fascism in the near future, I think that the Justice Dem thing is a great route. But otherwise, I think it's just really figuring out a way to like raise class consciousness among workers. And part of that is like a media sphere that does have, left-leaning ideology. Like for example, if TYT was as popular as CNN, like we'd be a lot better off as a country. And, I'm well to the left of TYT, but they're definitely better than, the crap propaganda that you're getting from the rest of the media. And it's hard to break through, I think, in so many ways in this country. It's hard to break through the Democratic Party. It's hard to break through media. It's hard to infiltrate these massive systems of capital that like feel like they can't be toppled at all.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I feel like it's so difficult. It's so far down the road, especially when you look at something like the climate crisis. Like the clock is ticking so fast that any kind of lofty ideas that one might have to try and engender some radical change just have to put on the back burner for the immediate issues that we have at hand. Like, are people going to have houses to live in that don't cost them their entire paycheck? Like the housing crisis. I mean, I was like found it wild looking at American politics, realized that there's basically no social housing sector. I was absolutely gobsmacked when I realized that you guys didn't have paid leave. Like, it's wild to me that these things just aren't something that you get in the US. And like, how are you gonna even even move forward towards anything like something even like resembling social democracy, like even like basic workers' rights enshrined within federal law? Feels wild to me.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's like no understating the amount of damage Milton Friedman and like that ilk of libertarian did to our country with neoliberalism. It has absolutely destroyed this country, and we have it worse than anybody. Like as far as like how neoliberal and privatized everything is, every single thing, and it does feel really like awful and hopeless a lot of the times because like what do you even do? Everything's broken. I mean, even now, even with all the crises we face, even after Trump was just in office for 4 years, like you still can't get like Democrats to like raise the minimum wage. Usually when you're getting close to like a civil unrest moment historically, capital gives something away to they'll give you a little bit of social democracy as a treat, just so you don't like kill them all. And it's like, even now, even when we're like on the brink of that, they're just like, no, let them eat cake. Like even now, and it's incredible to see that like they can't even pass like the most incremental bills like through our Congress. That's how corrupted and broken everything, like the system front to back is that we can't even pass like a common, like a basic thing that would have passed even in like a fairly moderate Congress 50 years ago. It's just, it's wild how far out of control things have gotten, and it's really hard to figure out what you do when you're like in the imperial core at this stage of capitalism, whatever that is, you know, that like Marx couldn't have even imagined. So
Yeah, quite, yeah. Although it is amusing that there was essentially this kind of dearth of Marxist thought for about 30 years or so. Like, kind of died in between the 80s and like the mid to late 2000s. And in the last kind of decade is when like, oh no, oh, turns out he was right about everything. Oh, okay, sure. Like, I mean, I guess
yeah.
the trend of social media has kind of spread a lot of Marxist stuff. I mean, places like YouTube and TikTok and Twitter and places like that, like Marxist thought has become a lot more mainstream than it used to. And someone in my chat, it's Ricky in my chat actually, sorry, who's I do podcasts with him. But that's essentially the fault of Blair and also the fault of people like Clinton as well. The third wayers, the moderate wing of the I guess nominally left leaning party in the respective countries, less so in the US obviously, um, moving away from the traditional voter base of the left to try and gain the centre ground by appealing to this shifting ephemeral idea of a middle class swing vote that's essentially killed a bunch of the systems that we had in place to be able to at least keep people going through like the excesses of capitalism. That's all gone. That's all been stripped away from the country, from both of our countries. And now we're seeing such a revolt amongst young people that Marxism is making a really big comeback. And at least people have, at least I think that's probably our roots to class consciousness is telling people, look, no, like there's a person who understood why these things would happen. Just read a bit, you might understand, and then you'll understand.
That's exactly it. I think like for me, like I think like mentally I was always a leftist, but I didn't like really understand the concepts, and I didn't know. I knew it was fucked up, like the way things were going, but I didn't know why it was fucked up. I didn't understand like why do you? I just like I remember even when I was really young, like why do you have to work a job every day? Like why don't you have anything and they just make you work and you don't, but you don't, they don't give you anything to start with. And like, which is, you know, Marx and alienation and stuff where he's talking about like not having tools or anything, like even serfs got tools and land to work on. So I think like a lot of people are probably like that, like where they know this is bullshit, but they don't really know why. And those are the people you can get really easily by just kind of like explaining about, you know, like what you're producing and that the value of that should be yours. And I feel like most people would agree with that. But it is the breaking through is like the hardest part. And even now, I'm honestly astonished. I did like even hold out hope this year that like maybe the Democrats would be scared enough to like try to do the right thing. And it's not even close. It's just, I mean, it doesn't help that they're all like 100 because I think, you know, there is a point in your life where you're just like, done changing your mind about anything, and all of those people are in Congress, and so it's like, what are we going to do? You're not going to get Nancy Pelosi to like change her entire way of doing things at 82 years old or however old she is. So it's a very hard problem to solve. And I think just to circle back about what we were talking about earlier is I'm automatically distrustful of like the type of media personalities that act like they do know what to do, right? Because I feel like it's just not even honest. Like, how can you say you know what is the right thing to do in this moment? You can say like it's better use of energy to do this or that, but not like to truly understand what it's going to take to like get through in this stage that we're in, whatever it is. I don't even think anybody even knows where we are. It feels like the country's falling apart, but yet you still have to go to work. It's really like a very weird thing, you know, where it's like dystopian, but not.
And the last thing that we need on both sides of the intra-left conflict is more leftist infighting. It gets nobody anywhere, and it just gets people caught up. And essentially, it's a more capitalist reason. At the end of the day, we've become like YouTube and Twitter and Twitch products to be sold within the marketplace of AdSense revenue. Um, and so that's why as much as I think that people could be more conciliatory when they're looking towards people within the movement. At least Hassan admits that he's just a dumbass on Twitch, talking nonsense in
Mm-hmm.
front of videos, right? He doesn't tend to be more. He doesn't try and be more grandiose than that, I guess, but it's still frustrating.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I think like I'm not like somebody that's like a streamer has no value because I don't actually believe that. Like I'm not gonna say like podcasters are useless or anything like that because it's like saying an author is useless, right? Like people probably balk at that comparison, but it's new media and you're whatever the medium is at the time is the medium you have to use to reach people. And if you can reach people while playing video games and entertaining them and you're putting class consciousness in their heads, like you're doing a good thing. And you can reach way more people now on Twitch like than you could when Marx had to write like a bunch of pamphlets and hand them out to like people at a factory. You
It's
know?
amazing. It's
Like
amazing the October Revolution even happened, isn't it? Considering
I'm
such
just
a massive
picturing Marx
country.
as a streamer now, like Marx with like his little headset on. But I think like everybody has a role to play. What I'm worried about is spinning our wheels with this crap, but it's like how do you get they're almost impossible to ignore, right? And like I've tried that, and it's like I wish they would just move to the right, like the people that are gonna do that, and just go do that, right? Like just do the like Dave Rubin thing or whatever, and
Oh,
then we don't
fucking
have to.
Dave Rubin. Oh, I
Yeah, I
despise
feel
that
like
man.
that's gonna happen with some people. I feel like it is, and that one girl, Sky Daddy, did it already. Like I'm just like hoping a few of them just like take their audience and like go to the right because they are right wingers. Like there's people for sure like Nico House is a right winger. There's people that for sure. I'm
I,
sorry, like you're a
I
right
don't
winger.
think
You don't have a single ideology besides wanting Medicare. Like
I don't even think
you
Nico
know,
is right wing. I think he's just an idiot. I think he's just
yeah.
not very switched on. Like, did you watch the panel from Better Discourses when it was him? It was Nico House, Peter Coffin. Was it somebody else? Some rightoid woman and Destiny. Oh god, it was the worst thing I've ever watched because it was just four people I dislike. It was an
Nightmare.
absolute mess. It was an absolute nightmare. Peter Coffin definitely came off looking the best, which is definitely the first and last time I'll say that.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, there's so many of them, right? And it's not just like the U.S. or anything. Like there's Caitlin Johnstone, right? And then there's just a Samir Khan. I don't know what this brand of like leftist is, but it's
I
it's
think I
very
have
weird.
now. I have a soft spot for Caitlin Johnson. I think she pushes a lot of good rhetoric in amongst like the infighting. I think she talks about like class issues not more than the other people do. When Samira Khan is on Twitter saying things like the DSA is the moderate wing of fascism, I'm just like, what is
Just
this?
like saying words.
Like,
She's just like so mad at DSA now. It's so weird. Like every time I see one of her posts, it's like about DSA or AOC. Those are the two. Maybe she just doesn't like acronyms, but it's like those are the two things I see every time like I see any of her tweets, and it's just why would you? I can't think of something more useless as a leftist than hating the DSA. You don't have to like us, but like, why would you hate? Why would you hate us?
it's like
We literally just
just to do some
get
constructive criticism. Like there's ways to put your point across that's going to make other people change. But when all your criticism is just thing bad, that is not a
yeah.
call. That's not a call for the other party to change. That's a rallying cry for other people to hate them. That's the difference. I think that's where I think on all sides of the discussion we have to look towards to try and build a broader coalition.
Oh, I totally agree. I'm actually thinking of starting a stream after the new year, and the main thing I want to do is like not just reacting to like what's going on Twitter or whatever, because a lot of people are doing that, and it's like everybody knows what I think, but I was thinking about like reading like kind of like Marxist books for the first time, discussing them on stream because like as somebody that's like new to a certain book, like you're maybe not gonna like come away with every good takeaway, and then you can talk to other people about it, and like they can learn, you can learn, and because I think like that's really missing. I don't see like any analysis, any like theory, You know, like I just don't see people like applying like the dialectics to any of this, and that's what we need. Like we need people to be a little bit more disciplined in their leftism and like trying to understand the systems, because you really can't break a system if you don't understand it.
100.
And
Are you absolutely right? Yeah.
you're just trying to like you're kicking a metal door. Like what are you doing? You know, you have to understand why it's broken. And that was to me the most illuminating thing when I like discovered Marx, was understanding like why capitalism got this out of control, because I
Same.
didn't
Same.
understand. I was like, why does this keep happening, right? Why do we keep having these gigantic busts, and things keep getting worse, but this it keeps like getting bigger, right? Like all the companies get bigger, and I didn't really understand why that was happening. And it totally changed my perspective about everything when I understood that. Like when I understood how they use labor, you know, like how they make profit, like all those things that you've been propagandized to think different things about, like supply and demand. Um, it really like made me more effective at talking to other people and talking about like the things they deserve in like non jargony ways. But I do see like a lack of that to some degree, and I think that just talking about it with other people would be great. I wish there was more of that on Twitter. Like I wish there was more like the like theory discussions, and just kind of like talking about what's going on right now, like with labor, what's going on right now with like different like Medicare for all movements that are happening in different states. You know, there's a lot of ways that I think like we can put a dent in this system, but it's kind of gonna just take like a million paper cuts. I feel like almost. I don't know that we can even take it down with a strike. Like even if people did general strike, like I feel like you'd have to do it for months for it to work, because things are so huge and out of control.
Mm.
I don't know, like our entire stock market functions on zombie companies that like aren't worth anywhere near what their stock prices
It's
are.
it's
Like
crazy. There's like there's a really there's I don't know how much like British TV you watch, but there's a comedian comedy writer called David Mitchell. I don't know if you did you see Peep Show when you were here?
okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm assuming as soon as you came to the UK, so you have to watch Peep Show. So I always say that. But anyway, it was on one of our panel shows called the Week, and he was talking about how like it's like the whole stock market crash. It's all just numbers. But when you realise it's all just numbers, it all feels a little bit less serious. Like nothing's blown up. It's not like all the sheep in New Zealand have suddenly died of blight. And you realise it's just some numbers have changed on someone's computer. Just type it back in. It's fine.
Hmm. Oh yeah, no, it's so true, and it's just that's why I'm like, okay, like Elon Musk is the richest guy in the world based on speculation. Like that's so insane, right? Like you're giving this guy like all the power in the world over speculation, and I mean Tesla is not actually worth anything, and that's insane.
It's almost like it's almost become meme value at this point. In that the stock value is just based on the fact that Elon Musk is popular on Twitter, like, and the fact that the
Yeah.
fact that he does like cool space age stuff is basically like this brand value which hasn't been associated to any actual kind of tangible like company valuation. It's just mind boggling to me. Like, so that's why I find NFTs so interesting. In that, so Bored Ape Yacht Club is the big section of it, and it's in fixed supply. So the price of the commodity is entirely driven by demand, and the demand is for nothing. It's a receipt for a picture of a monkey. So you have to somehow create demand out of nowhere, which is why I find it incredibly funny. People will like quote retweet saying, "Oh, I right clicked and saved your JPEG on a picture of a monkey," and like, well, all you're doing is spreading the message further, which give them more brand recognition, which makes the NFT worth more money. But it's nothing. It's just a receipt for a thing. It's a club membership card for for like nothing, for like this like ephemeral concept of the picture of the monkey. And the fact that this is just
It's
basically the way the whole stock market works is just mind blowing to me.
Oh, it is. Yeah. And that was one thing I was like, I wonder what Marx would say about NFTs, because it is like unfathomably like capitalism. Like, it is the most capitalism thing that's ever happened is NFTs. Like, this has no use value. It has no value. It has no labor value. Like, it's just like, what is it? It's nothing. Like, I don't understand. You're selling nothing, like literal nothing, for $1 million. $1 million worth of nothing. I don't like. How is this the world we live in? People are starving in this country.
It's basically like precious metal at the end of the day. That's the only kind of analog that I can think, and that's kind of like the way that precious metal value just kind of like moves up and down based on nothing. There's no like the demand is completely like fabricated because they don't have any real use value.
Right. Yeah. It's truly like end stage capitalism for sure. I I don't know if it can get any more absurd than that because creditization, financialization is like a huge part of capital, but like it's so far extracted when you're talking about something like an NFT that there's just like it's just nebulous and even hard to wrap your head around. And like I don't know that we can go further as a society when we come up with something that ridiculous. Like it has to, you just have to start over. Like just reboot, factory reset the country. This isn't working.
Truly, we have reached the end times.
Yeah, and it's not even like fun like the movies. It's just like a slog. You start going to work, and then like randomly, suddenly the supply chain's messed up, and you can't get mail anymore.
So we're having the same supply chain issues over here as well because of Brexit as well. So it's just the world is like the UK and especially in the US is just like turbo fucked. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, it's just gone. I mean, it's weird because I don't think we even like noticed it until Trump left because like there was like the last year of Trump was COVID and then he left and then Biden's in office and then like suddenly you notice like people are stores are all closed because people aren't working because they're not getting paid enough and then your deliveries are coming like 4 5 6 days late and like the supermarkets aren't fully stocked and things like that and it's just bizarre that like all this happened this year and it feels really dystopian and then you just have to carry on and do your regular life stuff like everything's not deeply messed up and about to like explode. It's a weird thing to be in that I don't know, like I can't think of an analog to that like in any movie or anything where it's like you're just still doing everything but like everything's just like
collapsing
falling apart. Yeah.
And my favourite thing is when people they'll put a picture up of the empty shelves because of the supermarkets under Biden, go, "How welcome to your free trial of socialism." And I'm just like, this is literally happening under capitalism right now.
They always do that. That's so funny. Like, when's the last time you went to Cuba?
I know it may be all the same products, but it's always fully stocked despite the embargo.
Right. Yeah. No, they're a brave little country, huh? They've really done well despite us. Hopefully leave them alone. We'll see. I don't feel good about that, but
yeah,
that guy is awful.
It's frustrating that Obama didn't pull through all the way with his removal of the embargo. It's a shame, but again, I guess he was just another shitlib completely consumed by capital interests at the end of the day.
Yeah, that was a hard one too. For me, like to like be honest with myself about like Obama because I was like really believed in him and then I was living in the UK when he was first elected. So like the first year that I was in the UK was Bush and then it was Obama because I remember the first year I'm Canadian, like don't, but I didn't realize like Trump would be my future. So but then it was Obama and I was super happy he was elected and I thought he was like a great statesman and all this stuff and then like that gets really ingrained in you and then you start to like really like realize like his awful foreign policy, like the things that the media didn't tell you about. If you actually read independently, you start to like have to change your views about him. But I feel like that's like one of those things where you lose liberals, like is when you're like Obama droned all these people, like immediately they're tuning out because it's the cognitive dissonance for them is painful.
Yeah. They don't want to hear about the bombs that got dropped on Yemen that were sold by Obama to the Saudis. They don't want to hear about it. But that's why Ricky in chat is talking about how like Obama radicalized plenty of people because he let them down, because he didn't deliver what he said he was going to deliver. He didn't practice what he preached in the day. I'm hoping we're going to get another turning point post Biden, in that people will understand that neoliberal centrism is not solving anything because it hasn't solved everything. I just find it unfortunate when we have bad faith actors who are purporting to be on the left, who are not using this to spread class consciousness, or instead using it essentially just spread rightoid populism at this point. I find very disheartening.
Yeah, me too. And it's, if it's like somebody with a couple hundred followers, I don't care. But when you're like have a massive platform, when you're somebody like Jimmy Dore and you're not being responsible with that platform, you're making the world worse for $1. And I don't respect that, right? Like that's the bare minimum you expect from a leftist, is to not make the world worse for money, right? Like for capital. So, like, please don't make it worse. Like, I'm begging you, just try. It's not the same as like being a cashier at Walmart. It's like you're literally propagandizing people, but not in the right way, right? Good propaganda, good. So,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
we need to propagandize people, but in the total different way. And I have seen liberals come around. I do think Biden is the accelerationist candidate, because he is useless. And I have seen a lot of even the really like blue wave hashtag resist people are like, what? Nothing's happening. He's not doing anything. They're tired of him, of Garland, of like people shuffling their feet and pretending to do stuff and not actually doing anything. So I do think that's definitely possible. Probably even more so than Obama, because things are so much worse now. Nothing's gotten better since 2007. Not really. Like it got better for like 5 seconds, and then it just slid down again because nobody's wages got increased. Nobody like got a break from anything. Truly, like nobody got a break from any of these insane bills that we have that we shouldn't have, like medical bills and student loans, and nobody's had a second to breathe. So it's just been like careening towards hell since Obama or Bush or I don't know, Reagan probably. But
it's been bad ever since. We had the same things. We've literally had nothing but bad since Thatcher as well. So
yeah, it's just neoliberalism. I mean, it's amazing. In a way, I'm in awe of like how much that ideology has like conquered the world. Like it's a disgusting, horrible ideology, but it is kind of like amazing that like Ayn Rand and like Milton Friedman ruined
Thomas
the entire
Sowell,
world. Like
the worst. I hate him so much.
It's just it blows my mind. But I hope we can pull people back to. I do see like more solidarity with like labor lately. I mean, it's still a blip, but I think even just seeing strikes builds class consciousness, and it is in the media. And I've never seen it. Like I've never seen anything about unions in the media until this year, probably. I'm hoping, but I think you just have to be like agile as a socialist that wants to organize, that wants to help and like talk to people. Is just like being agile and being like, okay, like the conditions at this exact moment are this, and we'll try this thing. Like to me, I thought the justice STEM thing was a good idea, but like now I'm not super sold on it because we just have too many people to replace. So it's like I don't think it's like a bad idea. I just don't like. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, because I just don't know. I don't think we have it like the time.
Yeah, and it's frustrating. We have people like Ro Khanna who then fly in the face of what justice Dems was supposed to stand for in the first place by not holding the line, going on, talking about being explicitly pro-capitalism in all of his stances as well. I find that frustrating.
Oh yeah.
But I guess it's again. I'm now in the position where I'm just randomly talking about individual personalities rather than talking about any kind of structural reality. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is, and I, like not, like I'm sure I would get accused for running cover if I posted something like this, but like, I don't think it's discussed enough that the structural advantages to Nancy Pelosi and like the moderate ilk are so much stronger. And I mean, not only the stuff we know, but the kind of like soft pressure that Nancy Pelosi can pull off to like get votes for things that she wants to pass. She can ruin your freaking life. Like she had a moderate that she wanted to pass something recently, and I guess she knew where the moderate's wife worked, and like basically said that it was like she had connections, and said like she's gonna lose her job if you don't like vote for this bill. I mean, like you don't think she's playing 10 times dirtier with like the squad or whatever, then she's playing with the moderates. Of course she is. So I don't think we even talk about like how toxic and impossible it is to accomplish anything um, progressive with that kind of leadership. Like all of them, all the people in leadership. So I don't know. Like this cards are always stacked against socialists, but they're super stacked against us right now.
Like I have there are like, if you look at globally, there are little pockets of things that make me hopeful. Obviously, in Scandinavia, they still have all of the, they still have plenty of proper like social democratic reforms, which are still in place today. So that's something. Like, there's at least a model that we can show to people and say, oh, well, obviously I'm not a social democrat myself, but I understand that it's better than liberalism, right? I can always go to people and say, look at these countries, they do things well, right? They do it better than we do. So that's good. And then places like in Portugal and Spain, where things are radically moving to the left, it looks like Labour are going to win the next election in Australia. Like there's little things that give me some amount of hope. I just might have to leave Turf Islands to get to be able to cope.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is happening. It's just like it's scary when you're like, okay, well, what's going to happen? Are we just going to be in this like neoliberalism dying thing for the next 20 years? Like what you don't like it's very unknown, you know. After Trump anything's possible. I mean, we've got like really weird people in like the House of Representatives now with like Marjorie Taylor Greene and like it's just it's all very bizarre and it's almost like a writer is like doing the last season. They're just like throwing everything in there like you know, just have the space lasers and like I like it's just so over the top honestly everything that's happening.
It does
But
feel
I
like
think
you couldn't satirize it.
yeah, it's ridiculous. Like every day I'm like we live this is definitely a simulation. But I do think that I see consciousness like if I really think about it I didn't even hear like the word socialism at all growing up, except like to say that was bad. You know, like I was super brainwashed against it. But like you hear the word, and even in regular media, like often enough that I think that is a sign that things are changing. And like even Biden the other day said something about I'm not a socialist, but and like I just thought that was weird and something you would never hear from like a president 20 years ago is like I'm not a socialist like cuz he wouldn't even feel like he had to tell anybody that,
It feels
right?
to be forced to make that caveat because of the current political landscape is a win in itself.
Yeah. I mean, he's a few times. I think about 4 or 5 months ago, he said something like, this is a capitalist country or something. He said something like that, and I was like,
It
huh,
was in
like
the
that's
it was in
interesting.
the presidential debate. Trump was accusing him of being a socialist. He said, "Well, no, in the primary, I beat the socialists, right?" Like there's
Yeah, yeah.
people having to make these caveats now because they're actual. I've always thought of Bernie as basically hiding as powerful, essentially just being a crypto socialist a lot of the time. Like the guy went for his honeymoon in the fucking Soviet Union. Like it's very clear to me where his loyalties lie and where his actual positions lie. But he understands, you can't just run on socialism to get elected.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Like, I definitely don't agree with him on like police being workers, but no, it's very clear that he has like actually read theory and done the work. And if you read his history, I think he spent like several years in the 70s just like reading books, broke as shit, trying to understand why things were the way they were, and that's what brought him around to like getting into politics. And I think we're in another like moment like that if we can just like the consciousness is there, but it's just like how to reach the most people and like how to break through the media bullshit. Like there's just so much propaganda from our sensible side, like even the online leftists, and then you have like the corporate media, and then you have the right wingers. So it's like all these like the final boss is like Nancy Pelosi. I don't know, but you have to like break through right wing media. You have to break through corporate media, and then like you have to break through like a good chunk of left media to get to people, and that's kind of a shitty place to be is like like you have to break down so many barriers, but at the same time I think we didn't even like talk about socialism publicly 6 years ago. Like
Mm.
I can't not really. DSA was like 7,000 people and now it's 100,000 or more,
Oh shit, blimey!
so
I didn't know it was that big. That's impressive.
yeah, we just hit 100,000. So it's I mean, that's incredible. Like from 2016 to 2020, and it's really, I think, Bernie and AOC, for the most part, are responsible for that. People are like, "What's democratic socialism?" And of course, DSA comes up. So, a lot of people do think it's like the Swedish model or whatever you want to call it, but that's fine. Like I don't really
Yeah,
even care if like people think socialism is when the government does things. Like
yeah.
I don't care if people think that because that's actually not bad. Most people want the government to do things. Like most people,
Even the
I think,
small government people want like more police power. I'm
right.
are you don't tread on me or are you not? Like
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like no, besides like anarcho-capitalists, I don't know of anybody that doesn't want the government to do things. Like really, and most right-wingers do think that we need to do things about corruption and about healthcare, and like there's certain things that even paid family leave, basic things that feel like
this is crazy.
why
That's
don't
the
we have
crazy
this?
bit is that these are things that have incredibly like bipartisan support amongst the actual voter base, like paid leave, like at least some level of like Medicaid expansion, like drug price controls and things like that. It's insane to me that there's no drug price controls. Like so obviously in the UK when we have an NHS, they're a monopsony buyer, so we get to like grind down all prices on drugs coming in from Europe. So we're the only buyer, we're the biggest buyer in the UK. So you either sell to us at this price, you don't sell to us at all. Which to be able to not have that level of bargaining power, in the biggest, the most like well-off country in the world is crazy to me.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it's everything. Every law is written by corporations here. There's not a single like the reason I love libraries, like I love libraries because it's the only like uncorrupted public good we have in this country. I'm sure there's some way it's been corrupted and I don't want to know about it, but they're still really great. Like libraries are wonderful and every time you go to one it's great and it's like probably the only thing we have like that. That there's not a massive barrier to entry, that it's just a public good that's there for the public good, that it's not being ruined by corporations. Like, I don't think there's even any other analog to that, like anywhere else in the country, unfortunately. It's awful, like, but people will get fed up. And you're seeing that, I think, with people refusing to work for shitty wages, shitty jobs right now. Like, everywhere I've gone, um, this year. Like there's help wanted signs. So you have to think that it's going to make a dent eventually. Because I think the consciousness is changing. Like, why am I working a job that doesn't even pay all my bills? Like, I can't even make it to the end of the month. What's the point?
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I think I guess the kind of the overarching theme of the conversation that we've been having is specifically around how do we turn this feeling, this consciousness, into a movement, into action, into policy, into radical change that we need to see. And I think that's where online media figures have to play a huge part because these are the people who are going to be able to get messages out to plenty of to large groups of large bases of people. Which is why it's frustrating to see it being um, used for less than pragmatic means.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I try to at least financially support any like progressive media that's like doing good work. I give TYT money. I give like the Daily Poster money. I give the Ink money. Like anybody that's putting out like stuff that's not sponsored, that's like good investigative journalism, or is just like has a good progressive message. I try to like at least give them $5 or $10 every month because I think the way to like really break through is just to have a bigger media space that can reach to these people, like reach the majority of the population, give them a chance to decide if this stuff works for them. But honestly, I think for the majority of people, it probably does. It's just that it's everything is Democrats versus Republicans, culture war, this and that, instead of like
Yeah.
how people really feel about issues. And it's like, how do we break through the noise? And I can't think of anything else we can do, like to break through better than using new media, growing the media sphere. It's just you have to like be as loud as all that propaganda, or at least nominally close. I think to kind of break through that. I really wish, I wish that the that version of the left, it was more conscientious, but I do think like a lot of it is clout chasing. A lot of it is like looking at your numbers, growing your numbers, getting more followers. Like, it's really not collectivist at all. It's like really just being concerned about your own image and like using the aesthetic of leftism to fill your bank account up, and and not actually helping comrades that need help and need like direction. And sadly, a lot of people that look up to a lot of these figures like are like well-meaning people that need a little direction, a little push like in the right direction. They don't know what to do with like the anger and disappointment they're feeling about the Democratic Party, right? Because I feel like when somebody realizes Democrats suck, like that's your moment, right? That's when you can like, yes, you're right, they both suck and this is why. But instead of like capitalizing on that, it's like, yeah, the Democrats suck, let's be mad at them every day on stream. And it's like you're not doing anything with that energy like that you could be putting into revolutionary energy. Instead, you're just kind of like, I'm just going to give you a place to go and be mad at Democrats. And I don't know, like, that's not changing anything. Like,
it's anger for anger's sake rather than directed
yeah,
anger.
it feels good, if like somebody like going on the stream and cursing out Nancy Pelosi, like, yeah, that's cathartic. Hell yeah. Like, sometimes I've seen things like that and I'm like, yes, that feels so good to see somebody say that. But ultimately it's useless, right? She's not watching that. Like, it doesn't do anything.
And again, it's liberal in nature. It's this liberal personality politics. When what you really say is Nancy Pelosi sucks, and she sucks because she's beholden to the whims of capital, and that's the system that we need to change, so that when people get into positions of power, they don't get subsumed by by the whims of capital, and instead we have people who answer to the actual people who pay their bills, like they're elected members. They're supposed to represent us, like. That they're not they shouldn't be there for any kind of personal gain or any personal politics. Like the people in your constituency or your, I guess, congressional district, if you're in the US, that's who, as a representative, that's who you're supposed to support. But we get, I guess, both in the US and the UK, we get caught up in party, like in like overall party policy, rather than talking about, well, no, how many. If you're from I know, from the north of the UK, you should be, if you're a representative or like a member of parliament, I guess, in the UK from the north, you should be doing that for northern interests. You can't just go along with the party whip every single time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And she's a really good I don't know, test case, because she was like for Medicare for all in like the 90s. What changed, Nancy? I mean, that's what happens in this system. It's absolute corruption, and that's going to happen. You just have to almost count on like these representatives getting corrupted, because that's the system that we have. It just incentivizes the very worst people. That's why we have like these awful edgelord billionaires that are the richest people in the world, is because like, of course the most sociopathic people are going to be the ones worth $300 billion in a country that like lets you have that much money, that incentivizes and like idolizes people that have a ton of money. So of course, like, that's what we're elevating, is like the worst, most toxic people in this entire country.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So, but yeah, so I think probably a good place to finish off is just you kind of recapping that what we need to do is that we need to ask more of our media figures to think about the general purpose of what they're doing, have an end goal, have we should all have a unified understanding of where the left, what the left's goals are, our what steps we're going to take to achieve them, and using messaging in an efficient way as to move things towards that, rather than just generating viewership for viewership's sake.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody should start a podcast if they want to, right? Like, everybody's got a different voice, or a different take on things, and you can bring people in, like, whatever you want to do. You don't obviously have to do that, but find a way to talk to people, and grow the media sphere somehow, so that we can break through and not have like the clout chasing weirdos that are kind of ostensibly crypto right wingers, be the loudest people, right? Like the people that are sane and have good takes and like and have read a lot of theory are the exact people that should be creating, writing, you know, like create something that people can consume, and it makes a difference, I think. In
Yeah,
the absence of
100%.
that, this is what we get. So
Brilliant. Perfect. Well, Amber, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been interesting to, actually have a personal chat with you, because I like all your posts on Twitter, but we never actually kind of spoken, just the two of us. So
yeah,
it's
it was
nice. It's
really
been cool.
nice.
You should come on. You show you were starting streaming sometime in the new year.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I want to wait till after the new year because I'm starting a new job and then it's the holidays. But I'm all set up, and hence the green screen, which I actually didn't set up for this. But but yeah, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, I can talk to people. I mean, that's all I want to do. Like, don't want to do anything fancy. Just talk to people about socialism and like how we can learn stuff and teach other people things, and hopefully get somewhere with this so that we're not like in a horrible neoliberal hellscape forever. So
Fingers crossed. That's just what I'm staring all about on
yeah,
here. Yeah.
yeah,
Brilliant. Well, Emma, I appreciate coming on. I will definitely have you on in future, and I'm happy to go on your stream moving forward as well. You'll be streaming on Twitch or
yeah.
YouTube or both, or
I'm gonna try to do both. Yeah, I'm gonna try to do like Twitch and then just upload it to YouTube thing. Seems because I do games sometimes, so I figure like I'll mix that in and see how it goes. So
100%, Andrew. I think that's the best way of doing it. Like, especially if a lot of people don't really want to watch just like political content all the time. They want to watch it dispersed with some kind of like gaming content as well. So, it gets to pull people in. If someone gets into you because of what games you're playing, and then suddenly there's such political takes that you could reach someone you are not otherwise have reached. There's like my favorite Magic the Gathering streamer is called Jeff Hoagland, and he talks politics a lot in spare time, and I think he moves a lot of people over with that rhetoric. So, it's great. Anyway,
yeah.
I'll definitely catch the next one, and I will see you later.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.